and welcome to Innovate Pasadena Presents, where we sit down with some of Pasadena's most creative and forward-thinking minds to discuss the innovation ecosystem. I'm your host, John Keatley, board member of Innovate Pasadena, and today I'm excited to introduce Kristin Olszewski. Kristin has a great entrepreneurial story that we'll get into here in a minute. After spending many years recommending wines and creating wine lists at some of the most exclusive restaurants in LA, she decided to start making her own wine, but in a way that no one else had done before, and create a cutting-edge lifestyle brand at the same time. Welcome, Kristin.
Hi, John. So good to be here.
Great. It's good to have you here and to talk about one of my two of my favorite topics, which is Nomadica wine and, of course, wine in general. So thanks for joining us. So I'd like to just start off by asking, how did you end up in the world of wine to begin with? Was this something that was a lifelong passion? What sort of attracted you to the wine industry and ultimately to becoming a sommelier?
So it's funny because I was raised in a household with parents that didn't drink. And I did my undergraduate degree in sustainable agriculture and creative writing. So, of course, my next step was to move to San Francisco and start working in restaurants. I was very lucky to cook at some phenomenal restaurants, Boulette's Larder and Michael Mina, but something was always missing. I really missed interacting with people. And so I somehow talked my way into a job at Saison, which at the time was a 1 Michelin star. It became 2 Michelin star in my tenure there, and now is 3 Michelin, top 50 best in the world. And it was there that I really got exposed to fine wines. I think back on it now, and I had the opportunity there to taste wines that I will probably never again taste in my life. And I had no idea what I was doing. I still remember the wine director at the time giving me this Chateau Yquem, one of the most, coveted rare dessert wines in the entire world. And it was bottled in 1888. And I remember tasting it and thinking it tasted like urine. And little did I know that 10 years later, I'd look back on that experience and hate myself for that moment. But I worked in some various Michelin restaurants, became very involved in the wine scene in San Francisco. Then I took a little detour back to the East Coast where I'm from. I'm originally from Massachusetts and thought I wanted to be a doctor. So I did a pre-med post-bac at Harvard, got into med school there, and was really miserable, honestly. Wine kept calling me back to it. And so I asked a friend if I could be a sommelier at his restaurant on Nantucket, and it was just off to the races from then. I was bicoastal for a few years, worked in Nantucket and then Palm Springs, California. I worked at Sean Brock's Husk. I was very lucky to work for Nancy Silverton at Osteria Mozza and just go deep, deep, deep into the beautiful world of Italian wine. I could talk anyone's ear off about Barolo for hours. And here I am today. Got it.
Well, I'm a little bit jealous of some of your wine experiences. It sounds pretty amazing. One of the things I've read recently was that less than 15% of the master sommeliers in the world are women. Did you experience this as a male-dominated trade, and what effect did that have on your experience and your early experiences in the industry?
Yes, being a sommelier and working in wine is incredibly male-dominated. I still think back on one of my early experiences when I was a wine director for several properties in Palm Springs. At the time, I was going for my certified sommelier, and I was invited to lunch with a master sommelier with a couple other people in wine in Palm Springs. And hands down, I'm a gold star person. I love certifications. I love tests. I'm a little psychotic about studying. And I've taken this approach to everything in my life. And I was definitely the most engaged person at this table. I kept trying to ask the master somm questions, befriend him, engage him, pick his brain. And he would barely look at me. And every time he spoke, he would address these two gentlemen at the table. And one of them actually remarked to me later, because the one that he was really engaging with was a spirits guy. He's like, how funny that you were so engaged about wine and he wouldn't give you the time of day. So I definitely experienced that side of the industry. But then I would say on the flip side, I've experienced so much mentorship from women in wine. And I think something that people don't talk about a lot about Los Angeles is that there are so many female sommeliers here. I think over more than anywhere else in the country. I was really lucky at Moza to go work for Sarah Clark, who ran all of the programs for Nancy Silverton. And I showed up at just asking her to learn from her. You know, I was like, I've ran programs before. I've been a wine director, but you're in your 40s, probably one of the most accomplished sommeliers still working the floor in the US right now. And I just want to learn from you. And I do think, and I try to be this type of woman in wine now too. We do really lift each other up.
Well, got it. Well, as it turns out, Los Angeles is a place with many women entrepreneurs as well as sommeliers. So let's talk about how you made the transition from being a somm to starting a business. And why don't we start with just the concept behind your company, Nomadica? How did you hit upon this idea?
So it was very funny. A mutual friend introduced me to Emma Toshak, my co-founder. And I will be very honest, at the time I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder about people in the tech and business world starting wine companies. And that's the only reason why I agreed to go meet her. And she tells me that she's been pouring wine into Pellegrino cans to take by the pool. She tells me she wants to start a canned wine company. And my first reaction is, no, canned wine is disgusting. How dare you? I am an expert in fine wine. And, you know, I just sold $10,000 worth of Cru Barolo tonight. Like, I'm so offended by the idea of canned wine. I can't even talk about it. And so she's incredibly stubborn, stalked my Instagram, found a winemaker she knew I really liked, and canned a small batch of his Pinot Noir from the Central Coast. And I let it sit in my cabinet for probably 2 months. And one night I didn't feel like opening up an entire bottle just to drink alone. And so I thought, hey, I'll give it a shot. If I hate it, I'll just dump it down the sink. I was blown away by the quality of juice that was in this can. I, of course, poured it into a glass because I'll die on the hill that wine tastes better out of a glass. Absolutely. But it kind of just broke open my brain, and I realized that canned wine wasn't bad. People were just putting bad wine in cans. And then I really looked at the environmental politics behind it, and cans are infinitely more sustainable than bottles. And it just made sense to me that I should pursue this. And I thought, why not? I've always been a little bit of a risk taker and kind of just charged at things blindly without putting too much thought behind them. So I did the same thing with Nomadica.
Now, so Nomadica, so as I first came across the concept, as I heard you and Emma pitching the idea to investors, I don't know, was it 1.5 years or 2 years ago? The idea of wine in a can was fairly new, but not totally revolutionary. But the quality of wine that you were putting in a can was quite different than anything I'd seen before. And then also the branding around the product was pretty different than anything I had seen. So maybe just talk a little bit about that. So you've got the wine in the can, which for some people is already a bit of a struggle. Then you've got a high quality wine, and then you've got artwork and branding and a lifestyle around it. Can you kind of explain like how you kind of hit upon these elements and tied them all together?
Yeah. So something that was a really interesting learning experience for me was sourcing wine specifically for the can. We are definitely the only premium canned wine. And it was a little bit like pushing a boulder up a hill for the first couple years. But in the last year, especially with COVID, and people have really embracing sustainability and the idea of kind of conscious consumption, we've seen cans just take off. And our cans are a little different. We partner with artists on each label. So the art is the first tasting note for the wine inside. And this is because I've spent a decade selling wine to people, not sommeliers, just normal people who want to drink nice wine. And even the most advanced wine drinker, sometimes when you get into the nuance of flavor, you ask people, do you prefer tannic? Do you like dry? Do you like earthy? Do you like fruit? What style of body do you prefer? People look at you like you have four heads. But if you say, hey, it looks like this piece of art, there's this amazing synesthesia that happens in that moment where so much is communicated. And we wanted to be incredibly playful about that on our cans.
Cool. Let me just hold up. I happen to have the sparkling white here with the hummingbird on it, which is one of my favorite products in your line. Okay, so you've got this idea. It's innovative. It's new. No one's seen anything like it. You think it's a great idea. Emma thinks it's a great idea. How do you figure out if it's going to be a great idea in the market and in the wider world?
This was the fun part that I never really understood what people meant when they talk about starting your own businesses and how hard it is. And only now when I reflect back on the last 3 years, can I really have some perspective on that question. But so we came to market with a product, and I went out there trying to sell it. And I guess I was a little arrogant at first. I thought, hey, I sell wine all night on the floor of a Michelin star restaurant. This is going to be so easy. And I was not expecting the amount of sheer rejection that we got at first. So many buyers, people who were my peers, people who I had known from tastings, people who had an immense appreciation for my knowledge and my skill set, and everywhere that I've worked were slamming doors in my face and telling me that canned wine was never a thing and that it was horrible. And I understood it. I too had that mindset at first, but I never gave up. I still don't give up. If people tell me no, I think of it as like a not now, and I just kind of keep going. And we were able to, honestly, early on, being kind of pioneers in this space of premium canned wine, we're able to figure out where we fit really well. And so hotels were just a given and some low-hanging fruit for us to knock out at first. So for example, my very good friend Ryan Bailey, who's the wine director at the Nomad Hotel in Los Angeles, which I think was one of the best lists that we had in our city in quite a bit of time. He got what we were doing and championed it. He brought it in not only by the pool, but in the mini bar. And he saw his mini bar sales exponentially rise. And then even our branding alone, we were competing with other canned products, even other canned wines, and we outsold everything 3-1. And it was early adopters like that understood the mechanics of why this is perfect, why this fills a hole. And those early adopters really carried us, and I credit them with us. Yeah. Great. No, it's an amazing story.
So clearly some of the early rejections was a little bit of a surprise. What other surprises did you run into in the early years?
Fundraising was much more difficult than I had anticipated. I think there's a lot of nuance behind it. And I think one thing that I was so surprised about is how few people were willing to take risks. Because I had this feeling about the startup community before actually entering it. I thought these people are innovative. They are, groundbreaking. They can see unique ideas and understand where they fit in the market. And I think it was really hard for a lot of people to understand, particularly because, I'll be completely transparent, most of our investors are men, and most of our consumers are women. So I think that there was a little bit of a breakdown in understanding there.
Yeah, I'm sure. I can see that. It's been a few years since you guys launched. It's been an interesting couple of years. We've had this little pandemic thing going on. Hotels, which were one of your main clients at one point, almost shut down and still haven't really come back. Tell me, what's sort of the state of the world today? Where's the business today, and what do you see as the big challenges and opportunities going forward?
So we took the last year as an opportunity to accelerate our direct-to-consumer plans. We had always planned on investing quite a bit of time, energy, and resources into direct to consumer, but the pandemic just spread everything up. So now we are shipping to all states that allow alcohol, so all 48 with the exception of Utah and Alabama. I hired the most talented creative director, and we were really lucky to have Tara Hannaford join our team as a COO. She has had 3 successful exits in alcohol and has just created an immense value to the business. I'm really good at knowing what I'm not good at, and Tara fills a lot of holes for me. And so we just launched our subscription service, and we're launching a text to som platform, which is really fun. And this kind of came about because I was sitting around talking to my advisors and Tara, and I had mentioned that Tara had texted me the night before asking what wine she should get on a list. And I get so many texts a week about that specifically. Probably honestly 15 to 30 texts from investors, friends, family, etc. I'm at the grocery store. What wine do I get? What wine is the cheapest, best on this list? What glass do I get? And we thought it would be just wonderful to offer that to all of our Nomadica customer base. We are sommelier curated canned wine. Why not offer the sommelier experience in every capacity that we can possibly do so in? And so we're doing a lot of fun things like that. We're about to relaunch our cans with some brand new artists. We're changing all of the can art this spring. And we haven't taken our eye off the wholesale market because most people consume wine in the hour that they purchase it. But we're really excited about these limited editions that we're going to be dropping online once a quarter. So we've just launched our first one. It's a biodynamic and organic Chardonnay. We're launching a Piquette from one of my friend Mike, who runs Root Down Cellars. Him and his wife just purchased the smallest single vineyard AVA in Sonoma, and we're doing they got there and they realized there was a 70-year-old own-rooted Riesling that had been there and been farmed organically since its inception. And so we thought it would be really fun to make a low alcohol wine product with it. That's what Piquette is. It's kind of, I like to say it's the California wine cooler, but natural and clean. And so we're really excited about launching all of these.
So you're obviously passionate about the quality of the product. Wine is expensive, good, expensive, and yet you're trying to make it accessible to people. How did you do that? I mean, it sounds like you found a really interesting example in Sonoma. Do you have to be opportunistic and luckily, happen upon these great finds of great grapes and great juices that are available for you to purchase? Or how do you find the great product at a price that a middle-class consumer can reach?
I think this has been something that we've done really well. There's this phrase in winemaking called négociant, which means that you're buying your grapes from somebody else, but you're making wine from it. And I like to say that we are the négociants of canned wine, but instead of buying grapes, we're buying already made wine. And this allows us to find phenomenal products that if it were in a bottle would be 3 times as expensive. For our core SKUs, we sign proprietary agreements with all of those winemakers, not to disclose exactly where they're from, but this does allow me to take advantage of my, over a decade in the wine industry relationships that I've just built along the way and can offer consumers something that they would just never otherwise have access to.
That's really interesting. I mean, it sounds like there might almost be like an arbitrage opportunity here where these producers are holding back this product. And if you're going to put it in a bottle that looks like every other bottle and has their vineyard on it, they're going to charge you a certain price. But do they view this as sort of an alternative channel and they're willing to let you buy and sell it at a lower price point than they might otherwise be willing to?
Yes, because it's beneficial for everybody, right? Because as a winemaker, you don't want to make 50,000 cases of your wine. You want to make 20,000 cases of your wine so you can jack up the price on it, allocate it, make it more exclusive, create more of a brand and a cult story around the wine that's inside the bottle, even if you're producing 5 times that amount.
So, Kristin, you mentioned at the beginning that being in LA was important to kind of your career trajectory. as a sommelier. You're in LA today. You're based in LA today. Not only in LA, on the east side of LA, or what we at Innovate Pasadena like to call Pasadena adjacent. Is your location of where you are in the world an important part of the story of Nomadica, or in the post-COVID world, does it kind of not really matter and everything's virtual anyway?
I love LA and I love East Side LA. I love Pasadena. I actually think that the East Side of Los Angeles has the most innovative and exciting wine scene. I will maybe be even a little risky and say in the country.
Wow.
I know it's a bold statement, but I stand behind it. I think that, when I was living in Nashville, I was thinking about where to move next. And I was thinking about moving back to San Francisco or to New York, which I've also spent some time in New York. And those wine scenes are great. There's the opportunity to learn a lot about like classic wine, which I'd already done. And Los Angeles has been this kind of mishmash of natural wine, classic wine. There's so many different types of people here looking for different types of things. And I don't think that we have a specific wine scene here. And I think Los Angeles, in terms of its wine scene, is still figuring out its own identity. And so it's incredibly exciting. And even on the East Side, you have so many amazing wine shops. In Pasadena alone, you have Everson Royce, you have Mission Wines, and then littered throughout the East Side, Highland Park Wines, Silver Lake Wines, Psychic Wines, Tilda. There's so many people with different programs catering to different customers, and just so much wine out there. It's incredibly exciting. Whereas I think on the West Side, there's great wine, but it's more classic grower champagne, Burgundy, and Bordeaux, which is great. I love those wines, but I think it's a little more fun out here.
Yeah. We've got a lot of great wine shops in the area for sure. I'll have to compare notes with you on the best places in the neighborhood. So let's see. So tell me about the couple of years ahead. What's in store? The direct-to-consumer model seems to be working well for you. What are sort of the key success factors to sort of breaking through as a big national brand?
So we want a small portion of our business to be direct-to-consumer. I don't have the stars in my eyes thinking that 60% of our business is going to be direct-to-consumer. We don't want it that way. There's more opportunity in the wholesale market, but we would like 10 to 20% of our business to be online, with at least half of that being subscription based. Just gives us the opportunity to have more fun, innovate a little bit. We will be dropping some new products next year, which I'm really excited about. And we're currently in 17 states. I just want to own those states. I think at this point in time, we're going to slow down a little bit with our expansion. We're adding on 5 more states this March, but then I think we're going to pause. We'll probably expand our distribution internationally a touch. Canada's been going incredibly well for us. We'll launch in Australia and potentially the UK, as well as maybe Korea. But for right now, really focusing on our key markets, which are California, New York, South Florida, Washington, and Texas.
Got it. Do you think that, post-COVID now, more people are buying wine online? Is there a wholesale opportunity online? Are the Drizzlies of the world becoming an important part of the picture for you?
I think it's all been important in the picture. Whole Foods is one of our favorite partners, and they're really important to us. Drizzly, we've had great success with some of our Drizzly retailers in Los Angeles and New York. But I think in a post-COVID world, we all want to get out more, right? And I think the one thing that's changed a lot about people's drinking habits in COVID is people traded up a little bit. The $20 to $25 price segment saw the largest growth in 2020, about 35%. And we are very lucky because that's where we sit. And I think in these crazy moments, people are just trading up for small luxuries.
Well, what words of advice would you offer to entrepreneurs that are thinking about making that leap, starting their own thing, starting their own business, if you could offer any words of wisdom for them, what might those be?
I feel like everybody says this, so it's a little bit of a cliche, so forgive me, but find a mentor. Find somebody who believes in you. For me, James Veraldi, literally our first investor ever and our first advisor, has coached me over the last 3 years on everything from fundraising to putting together our decks to business plans to all of our strategy and marketing. And just one person has done so much for me, given me so much confidence and given me so much of himself. I'm very lucky that he believed so much in what we were doing at Nomadica. But then we were able to get phenomenal investors who believed in us, who are also there to coach us, help us. And I continually thank myself every day for our investors, because I feel like, and I don't know if every company is like this, but we lucked out. Everyone's there to provide an opinion, provide mentorship, buying the product, shipping it to their friends. And I think just surround yourself with good people and ask people for help and admit when you don't know things.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for letting me be an investor in Nomadica. I'm glad that I had that opportunity. I feel about Nomadica the sort of the same way I do about Bitcoin, which is this train is coming. So just get ready. And it's going to change the world. So thank you again. And this is another episode of Innovate Pasadena Presents. And we thank you for watching. And remember, stay innovative.